I know what you're thinking. Oh my, this is the sermon where Jane talks about the uncomfortable subject of money, of giving. I do hope it's not uncomfortable. I hope that it's a good, thoughtful message that will inspire you. One reason I'm sharing about generosity is that it's one of the values of the Article 2 Study Commission included in their draft of 7 shared UU values. Now, for more information about the work of this study commission, you can read my article in your newsletter, or you can go back and listen to the sermon I shared 2 weeks ago. I'm exploring one of these each time I'm with you in the fall. Last time I shared about equity. You know, as a church, we talk a lot about these others, but I'm so glad they included generosity, because we need to talk about it as well. In her message, The Land of Not Enough, Cecilia Klingman notes, in church, we grapple with life's most profound matters: justice, death, even the existence or non-existence of God. Yet the subject of money rarely comes up. In many churches, it's easier, maybe especially this one, to talk about sex than our finances. Yes, we speak of poverty, of global economics, and perhaps share our concerns about paying for retirement. When do we speak of our deepest worries and fears about the making and spending of money? Each of us has questions. In a culture that shapes us to be consumers before anything else, how do we make financial choices that are in line with our own values? How do we teach our children life's meaning in a society that emphasizes appearances and accumulation? Now, these are profoundly religious questions: ethics, human worth, and security. And church is the best place for these discussions. Here we are gathered to share our values. Our congregations can provide a place to examine our materialistic culture, to speak truthfully about our questions and our struggles, perhaps to even be vulnerable in these questions, to comfort and encourage each other along the way. So yes, today my focus is on generosity and generous giving. For a little inspiration, I've turned to a story from the Bible, a parable that's shared by Jesus. It's a familiar one, but it's not often used on Stewardship Sunday. Here's a translation from the Living Bible. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho. He was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead along the road. By chance, a priest came along. When he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and he looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along. A despised Samaritan came along. And when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If the bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Now, it's interesting that Jesus chose as his hero of the story a Samaritan. They were despised by the Jewish people. The Jewish people would go a long way around just to not have to go through Samaria when they were walking. I read that there was even a morning prayer recited by many Jews in that day that said, Lord, give me a good day. Give me this day my daily bread. Keep me safe. And Lord, I pray there will be no Samaritans in the resurrection on the last day. Pretty harsh. So the Samaritans were the enemies. And Jesus was intentional in using the Samaritan as a good example of a good neighbor that we should love. Many use this parable for teaching about mercy and compassion, but it also speaks about generosity in three ways. And I was opened up to this by a message I read by Kurt Truxas. First, the Samaritan was generous with his time. Now, just like the rest of us, the Samaritan had a schedule to keep, but he reached out to someone, probably someone that's hard for him to love, and gave him hours of his life. Time is a precious commodity. It's not unlimited, but as my husband Greg reminded me recently, I once preached a sermon in which a revelation came to someone that said, time is a meadow, not a highway. So we can look at time in many ways. And in reality, we have all the time in the world, don't we? We can be generous in using it for good purposes. Second, the Samaritan was generous with his heart. He obviously had loads of compassion. This stranger who was beaten and stripped of everything he owned and left naked on the road. He genuinely cared so much. He liked to use some of his own clothing for bandages and use his own precious oil and wine to soothe the man and make him comfortable, putting him on his own means of transportation, so he had to walk himself, taking him to an inn and staying up all night to care for him. He showed love for this man. Third, the Samaritan was generous with his money. He paid enough to the innkeeper, some scholars say, that would last for a month. And then said to keep an open tab if it ran up more. Now you may say, well, perhaps he was wealthy. But as we all know, those who have it are often the ones who won't give it away. Many say that if you want to see what people really care about, look and see where their money goes. He cared about this man, and he opened up his wallet for him. The Samaritan gave of his time, his talents, and his treasure. I'm glad that the Article 2 Study Commission included generosity as one of our shared values, because Unitarian Universalism is foundationally a culture of generosity. We come together in the belief that life is better together, that by sharing all that we are and by being together, we create a community that cares. Together, we create this community, and it does change as we change and as the world changes. We now have hybrid church, and we'll probably need to continue to do so. I am so glad that folks were generous enough with their time, their talents, and their treasure to make this possible. What I'm especially encouraging you to do in this message today, if you want to know, one of the most important things you can give to this community, our congregation, is your presence. That's P-R-E-S-E-N-C-E. Presence, showing up. We've been through some difficult times with this pandemic. Folks are out of the habit of coming to church gatherings. And you may think sometimes, I don't need church this morning. And maybe you may not. But we need you. It changes the entire spirit of this fellowship. Have you here among us, or on Zoom if you can't be here in person. Your smile, your words, your fist bumps, your chat messages in Zoom, other greetings, brighten our days and hearts. We are so appreciative too of all the skills that you bring, that you share with us. We've been in special need of those technological skills, and for those who are willing to develop them in the past few years, some folks that didn't have them so much have developed them just to help us out. And we're so pleased that many of you share your skills with landscaping, building repair, teaching, cooking, bookkeeping, and more. I assure you, and music, I assure you, whatever you can do, we could probably use your help. And of course, just as the Samaritan opened up his wallet, we need for you to open yours. If we want to continue to be a shining light in this community, we need your money. We have survived and sometimes thrived as a liberal voice in Southeast Georgia because of the generosity of folks who have gone before. Now it's our turn. We have a mission. We're hoping to shine the light of our liberal faith here in this community. We need your voice here, your time, your talents, and your treasure. There are so many who could find a home with us. Most churches ask their members to tithe, share 1/10 of their income. We don't have that requirement. There is something about making a large commitment to a faith community that can be a wonderful spiritual practice. I know it's been very meaningful to me personally. Some jokingly call this sermon, Stewardship Sermon Sunday, the Sermon on the Amount. Sermon on the amount, because we do ask that you carefully consider the possibilities. We need for you to complete a pledge card because we need to be able to better predict what we can budget for next year. Now, we are planning to have the wonderful Clint Talls to keep coming to speak to us once a month. And if you have not heard him, just go and listen. I'll send you the link if you don't have it to his sermon from just last Sunday. What a treat that was, and what a treat he is. Clint is preparing for UU ministry. He was a Pentecostal evangelist minister, and he tells all about that in the sermon from last week. But it's very good. But he's preparing for UU ministry, and we're planning to have him once a month. Now, we didn't start out paying him what he really should be getting. So the board decided on good faith, double that amount, which is still not enough. And we did that on good faith, knowing that you will provide us with the resources to do that next year. We hope that our ministries for our children and youth will reinvigorate. And having funds to do things like send them to the mountain for retreats would mean so much. We haven't been able to do that. The only children in this congregation that have been to the mountain have been some who happen to have parents who could easily do that for them, because it does cost. We should do that for them. It shouldn't matter. Any kid that wants to go to the mountain for a retreat and be in just so showered with Unitarian Universalism and with be with other Unitarian Universalist children and youth, which they don't have many here to be with. It's a wonderful thing. We should get that. We should have that in our budget. We also need to begin building a budget that will support getting another minister when I retire in a few years. Now, folks, I work on the cheap, as they say, because I can. But you are going to need more to be able to have another minister, even a part-time minister. So as you consider your pledge to this congregation, let me ask you a question. What percentage of your resources does love ask you to share? Let me ask you another question. What gift can you give that will be meaningful to you, that will give you strength and clarity in the months ahead? What gift would be exciting, nourishing to your own spirit? C. Kingman notes that the old proverb about the Lord loving a cheerful giver is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean that we should give an amount that is easy for us. And it doesn't mean that you should grin and bear it. It means that you should give a gift, we all should, that gladdens our hearts, that gives us joy. It means when we give generously with authenticity and integrity, the sacred moves in us, the divine moves in us. The question is whether we want to live our lives with a mindset of scarcity. Do we want to live our lives that are abundant, full, and free? Give us a sense of purpose and wonder. This faith community was built on the generosity of others. We are blessed to have the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Statesboro in our lives. We are rich indeed. May we live with generosity this day, and the days to come. This precious church is what I love. The spirit here is living, but it could grow and nurture more. How can we keep from giving?